Look, detectives combing through the hood looking for a corpse. Draco hitting, I don't think your body can endure the force. I whipped the fish up with a fucking hanger or a fork. Told that bitch, go ahead, sniff what you want, there's plenty more to snort. I had an outstanding warrant for a short. Turned myself in, rocking Louis and all my jewelry, I wore the court.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hard to Kill, episode 67. We got Doc Martin in the house, and I am pleased to finally bring to you Sergeant Caz, a.k.a. Raid Team, a.k.a. Big Drip, a.k.a. the veteran merch god, holding it down right now, cornerstone of the veteran merch game. I've been chasing this man all over. Finally here tonight with us, Sergeant Caz. Holla at him.
What's good, man? How you guys doing?
How you doing, bro?
Doing well.
Doing good, bro.
2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That blue
The only one that matters. The only one that matters.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
It's that best coast, bro. It's the best coast. Come on.
The best coast. Yeah, I feel it. I fuck with it for sure.
So we were with 2-3 down in K-Bay.
Okay.
But
y'all were with the slums. I always dreamed about being in what was it, Mackey Bay or Mackey Hall, where y'all were just like some gladiator shit. I was like, damn.
So
see, I never got that with them. I went to them as a combat replacement. So I was first Mardiv. I was first Mardiv all the way, man. I was that blue diamond, but I raised my hands for that fucking pump.
Yeah, them boys. I mean, we tried to get down like them in Horno, and I feel like we did kind of, but Mackey was definitely something that we heard about more so. So like when we got back from Afghan, I think 3-1 was back or some shit like that, or 1-1 was back. So we like walked past their barracks and got into like a Spartan 300 fucking brawl with them and set their shit on fire. Yeah, man, we tried to like live up to the Mackey Hall.
Don't you love those, dude? Don't you love those?
It was crazy. It was crazy for a minute.
Yeah.
Yo, you gotta. I don't think enough people talk about, like, listen, street fights happen, guys get in bar fights, but have you ever got into a smoke pit, just bash out, dude? Because the weekends get litty.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
yeah.
Different. But talk to people, Caz. Let's first off, why don't you talk about what you got going on with merch right now? Because honestly, that's how I first checked you out, man. There's, we've had a few guys come on the show with merch, but there's something about what you're doing that really gets people's attention. And when you can do that with merch, really just put on and put just certain phrases that just show who you are, and it just hits different. I mean, you got something there. So talk about it for us, bro.
I mean, I just came back from like taking a year off. I had some deaths in the family that like.
Sorry to hear that, bro.
It definitely took me for it took me for like if I could explain it, it would be I forgot people die. That's what it was, because I got one death and then 2 weeks later I got another death. And so for me, like at the time I was like at the forefront 421 and the guys that ended up dying in Afghanistan. And so it kind of happened like one of my homies from MARSOC hit me up and he was like, yo, my homie's wife is having some issues with her command and shit like that. And they're doing some food shit over there. Like, you mind using your platform to kind of, I guess, shed light on it, So I was like, fuck it. Like, yeah, it's all good. And so man, that shit was a fucking.
So Caz, you were saying you recently took a loss in the family. Yeah, go ahead. That's my bad.
Yeah. I mean, the pillars that they like, those two people were pillars, like in my life, kind of like they were very much my compass in the world.
Damn.
You know, and like at that time, like we lost the main page. There was a dude that was on there during, like I said, I think I told your homie, our page turned into like a news channel, like way before the Northern Provisions and all these other fucking dudes. Like it was our page. You know, there were dudes that were putting shit in, you know, sending me messages that I couldn't put up. Like it was in ill faith. It would have been fucked up for me to put it up. So I had to like pick and choose what I wanted to like expose everybody to. And I mean, it got so deep that like we were on one of the fucking Taliban's pages where they had screenshotted my page and then put it in their little Discord or whatever the fuck they have, to where they were talking about our shit.
Shit, they got real on you.
Yeah, it got real quick. And like, I remember talking to, I think it was CNN, Fox, and like another broadcast station, and they were trying to do interviews with me because they wanted to get to like actually what happened. And I told them, I said, you know, if you got to make me a deal, and the deal is going to be, if you can push mental health for veterans and guys that are enlisted, then I will talk to you about what I feel like I can. But if you don't want to do that, we're not going to have no fucking conversation. Damn. And I mean, I have screenshots of where I have screenshots of where I said that shit. Smart. And I was like, nah, fuck all that. And so, because I mean, coming from the street, man, you get used, and you know when somebody's trying to smart talk you. So it was like, these guys are just trying to get the raw nitty gritty of what the fuck is going on. And I mean, there were days that like me and my homie that was a part of the brand before, we had to take shifts, and like he's in California, I'm in North Dakota working on rigs, and it's like 24/7. I'm like, yo, dog, like you take from this time and I'll take from this time, and we're just gonna be in the DMs, like we're gonna be online, like constantly. Damn, talking. It's like that. Yeah, it got wild, man. And I remember I broke down one day because, like, for me, I didn't join for a patriotic reason. I just didn't. I was going to prison. Like, I was already there. So, like, the judge told me either you can go to the military or you can finish this bid. And my mom ended up, like, talking to me in the, I guess, the lawyer chambers or whatever the fuck you want to call it back in the day. And she begged me to do it. She's like, if you don't do this, you're going to be a felon when you come out. You know, you're going to be gone for another 8 years. So I was like, I mean, I can hold down as 8. You know what I mean? So it wasn't that big.
Not to interrupt you, bro. So this is no bullshit. You actually have that story. I've heard a lot of dudes cap and be like, yo, I caught this and the judge gave me the ultimatum, but you know, they were just, come on.
Yeah, no, my shit.
You actually have that. Yeah.
Yeah, I got caught. I did an armed robbery. That I did a couple of them, but that was the one I got caught doing. And I got the book thrown at me, you know, and it was like I'd never gotten caught. So to the judge, it was like, well, we've never had you in here. You don't have a record or whatever. But it wasn't because I didn't have a record. It was because I didn't get caught. I hear you. You know what I mean? So for him, he's like, you're a good kid. I mean, I was basically in the morning, I was volunteering with kids that, you know, had mental disabilities. And then at night, I was on the street. Like, I was selling dope. Damn, you know, so I was living kind of like that alternate life. And but to get back to it, like, I hit rock bottom during that time. Like, where I was on the forefront for these guys that were in 2-1, not just in 2-1, but everybody, because I was hearing that everybody was getting fucked with in Afghanistan. It wasn't just our unit; it was everybody that was there.
Give me a year.
Uh,
this is you post Marine Corps, or are you still active?
No. So when we used our page to like kind of go to bat for these guys, this was a pullout to Afghanistan. So I'm like,
gotcha. Okay.
But no, the prison thing that happened. Fuck, I don't even remember dates. I remember that
I was more so asking about when you were actually using the page. I got you.
So
I was with you.
The page was during the pullout.
Gotcha.
So during that pullout, like way before anybody got killed, like we were using our page to like, yo, what the fuck you guys got these guys like police calling trash and standing right next to some of my junior guys were sending me pictures of them standing next to the Taliban. And it's like,
when I first started hearing about that, dude, it hit me so hard. Like, how did we go from such an extreme to trigger time with these guys to actually standing next to them and letting it play? Like,
I think they had I mean, I have to remove myself from the situation and think about it like gang shit. Because I mean, that's what I know. So
it's the only thing that makes sense.
We had the same common interest, like with the Taliban. The Taliban wanted us to fuck out of there, and we wanted to get out of there too. So at the same time, those dudes understood, okay, if we play ball, they'll get the fuck out of here, and then we can have our baseball field back.
So, bro, you're talking about at the very top.
Yeah,
play went down.
Yeah.
That's basically what it was, and like. So I had to take away the anger that I had with like this junior guy standing next to this fucking dude kitted out that years ago we would have been hanging him from trees. Like that's kind of
facts.
So it fucked with me for a little bit, but then I was just like, I was telling them like, yo, just hold your head. You know what I mean? Like if it pops off, make sure you're the one that shoots first. You know what I mean?
Facts.
Like that's what I was telling them. And
I think this is the first time this dynamic has actually been verbalized, because the time frame we come from, bro.
Yeah,
we're putting these dudes in the dirt.
Yeah, it was 2010. I mean, I tell people all the time, if you came after that dude, it's like maybe you got some, maybe you didn't, but like 2010 was active everywhere.
Yes, it was, man.
Big time. It didn't matter
for that to change that dramatically, bro. That's something significant that needs to be verbalized.
It didn't change, man. It just was like it's like two gangs being in the same neighborhood, and then the feds are in town. So if y'all are beefing, everybody's getting fed time. So we gotta like shake hands long enough for the feds to get out of town, and then we can start fighting again. Like that's basically that demographic that was happening, and It's crazy, like, because going back to it, like, I didn't join to serve America. Like, that was never my intention.
No,
my shit was, I went over there, and in the beginning, it wasn't no brotherhood shit for me. Because, I had that before I came in. And so, after my first deployment, I got bit by that bug.
Yep.
Like I got bit by that bug, and then I was like, "Fuck, I could do this again," And then I did the first four. The first four I had Iraq and Afghanistan, and I think I had a MEU. And then the second enlistment, we went over to we went on another MEU, but it was weird because we were helo company, so it was still like a lot of shit during that time was going on. Like you had the fucking Yemen shit that was still going on. You had, in the Middle East was still burning the fuck up when I went on those MEUs. So it was like, you hear about MEUs and you're like, okay, well, anything can happen and you're fucking in your birthing area and whatever. But like, I got the opportunity to go to the LFOC once. And when I went up there, that's when it started like, God damn, like we're really
Can you break that down for the people a little bit?
So the LFOC was like the situation room. That's basically what it was. Like you can have your phone going in there. You can have shit And like every area operation that we were like near, that's what they had on screens. That's what the fucking data was. Like it was a situation room. So
yep.
as a platoon sergeant back then, like my previous deployment, I was a squad leader, so I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Like there was no reason for me to go up there. And that first time that I went in there and I saw all that shit, I was like, damn, this looks like some CSI type shit. Like I was like, God damn, what the fuck is all this stuff? And we ended up getting I think it was like they told us about the Sparrowhawk, the bald eagle, and all this other shit. And most of my guys were juniors, you know, they didn't know what the fuck was going on. So I was like, that's when it clicked to me that we could get called in the middle of the fucking night and we could go anywhere that the United States wanted us to go. And that's really when I stopped. Like, I was fucking off too on deployment, like on the mule. I was just trying to get big as fuck. Like that was it. But then that focus had to turn into like me telling my guys like, yo, this is what can happen.
Yeah.
You know, and we're going to go somewhere I don't even know about right now. So it's going to be different for me, but we got to get we got to start paying the fuck attention to what's going on.
Now you're going fast, bro. So explain that to the people, because when you actually now people always have this thing when they think Marines are always at the forefront, always banging, hooking and jabbing. But when you actually get the word and you realize, like, listen, we're about to go in the hot zone, like there's a certain type of mentality you need to take and you need to pass it on to everybody that's going with you. And that's exactly what you're talking about right now. And
I guess I can say like the whole Iraq deployment, that wasn't a very kinetic situation for us. It wasn't. I'm not even gonna lie about it. We had our situations to where we ended up like shooting up a fucking a wedding like by mistake, and the guys that went over previously, they were like during the push. So they're like during the push, there was no fucking ceremonial shooting or whatever the fuck. If you heard somebody going off, it was because they were shooting at you. And so we're in the, you know, we're going through Al Anbar and these like, we were mechanized. So we were driving around in fucking, you know, Humvees. It wasn't even fucking MRAPs at this point. And we hear this shooting. Like, I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm a turret gunner. So I'm like new to the game, don't know what the fuck's going on. And we ended up doing what we did. So that was like the very first time that I actually understood like shit can get retarded. You know, we were doing interdictions with the fucking the Humvees on the Syrian border. And one thing that really changed my mindset then was I was a smoker back then. And not dope, obviously, but cigarettes, you know.
I feel you. I hear you.
But no, we know what you mean, man. Burning the heaters.
And so I was sitting in the fucking Humvee on watch as a fucking, you know, a green dude, and I think it was my squad leader that smelled me smoking, and I thought I was the fucking most cleverest dude. So I ended up taking the rounds out of a mag, and I put the cigarette in the back, you know, at the bottom, like some fucking Vietnam shit. So I was like, oh, they can't see me if I'm doing this. But I didn't realize that this motherfucker had like a K9 nose. So he fucking, all I hear is this zip, like zzz. And this motherfucker comes running over to the Humvee and he's like, you motherfucker. And he's like yelling and screaming, waking everybody up. And at the time I thought he was blowing it out of proportion. But then he hopped up on the fucking Humvee and he grabbed me and he pointed my face towards like the Syrian border because we were right on that motherfucker. And he showed me through the past 13s or whatever the fuck they were. They were the thermals. He said, look over there in that post. And there was a dude staring straight at me with fucking binos or whatever the fuck he had at the time. But he was staring at me specifically.
Damn.
And so he's like, if you get fucking smoked in the middle of the night from a fucking sniper, blah, 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 like, dude's just going off. He's like, nobody's even gonna fucking know that you're dead because everybody's sleeping. So I was like, fuck.
Yeah, like, so we kept it real with you.
Yeah, I'm being an idiot right now, you know? And it didn't hit home because I think the deployment before me, there were some snipers that fell asleep in their hide and they ended up getting killed by a dude who snuck up on the roof, stabbed them, and a bunch of other shit. And then those guns went missing. And then they were fighting like the guns that the guns that got stolen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean that mindset was that switch for me. Like I gotta pay the fucking attention to what's going on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, we fast forward to Afghanistan. We had some junior guys that went over there too. But at that time, I kind of already knew that, like, you heard about Afghanistan. Like, you knew the motherfuckers hadn't been conquered. You see these videos of just, like, motherfuckers, like, scrapping. So I'm like, all right, this is different, you know? So I can't go over there with the same mindset that I had last time. And then the homie Wade got blown up in 2010. And that's really when it switched for us, too, because we hadn't had any casualties before that. Like, you know, they'd done River City for other units that were in Afghanistan, but they never did it for us. So, you know,
that's a real term, people. So River City is when they cut off all comms.
Yep.
Everything in and out, nothing. That means anything in there is getting dropped.
We didn't even know what the fuck that was. We tried to go in there and talk on the phones, and the phones were off. And then our platoon commander came in. It was either him or somebody, but he came in. He's like, "Hey, we're River City." I was like, "What the fuck is River City?" And they said, you know, somebody from a unit died that's over here. They hadn't told us who the fuck it was yet. And being in Camp Horno with 2-1, like, you got all the companies. Like, you got weapons, you got fucking, you know, Golf, Fox, Echo, all that. So you might be in the smoke pit with a dude that you may never talk. You know, I only had interaction with this dude a couple times, but it was so surreal after finding out that he was the one that got smoked. You know, he stepped on ID. But that's when it switched for us too. Like it definitely turned into a more like, let's do this out of anger instead of like anything else. Like it was just straight up just animosity towards them. And like we were talking about earlier, Iraq, they didn't have fucking dudes that were with kites.
It wasn't hitters like that. No.
There was no kites. You know, there were probably spotters, but there was like not some, it just, I know they had kids that were doing weird shit.
So, but anybody that doesn't know what he's talking about, the kids over there, anytime that we came near, we were rolling through, we had convoys, we were dismounted. Kids would rock kites. Kids would just do some weird shit just to signal to the boys that, you know, we were there. And, you know, that's usually when shit would pop off.
And with that, like, we relieved 3-1. 3-1 was over there, and they had been into some shit, like, before we even got over there. And so us never being in Afghanistan, we didn't understand that demographic. We didn't know anything about that. So our very first fucking patrol with them, you know, they take us out there, and they were already fucking, you know, torn camis. Yeah. They didn't give a fuck. They were already kind of like, fuck this. And so they took us out one night, and one of the squad leaders was telling me, it was this dude named Demadero or Demadaris or something. He ended up, he told us that, you know, these kids out here, they fly kites. And like, okay, what the fuck does that mean? And they're like, no, they're spotters. And so there was some things that happened to those spotters before we got there. And so we kind of knew how we needed to handle that situation too, if we saw a spotter. And it was kind of fucked up knowing that, like, they were using kids to spot, but it's like, I mean, it's either
what it is,
that kid, or
you,
this patrol of, you know, this patrol, you know. And like going back to just that whole time frame, like I had dudes that had been through the push, like the original, like guys that were in the job and shit like that. And so them explaining to us like the mindset that we needed to have versus the one that we thought we had, because we already had this deployment to Iraq under our belt, it was completely different.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, yo, this is like, motherfuckers won't come back from this shit. And even some of them
up in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
man. Some of them were even fucking nervous. Like guys that had like way more kinetic shit that they'd been through, they were telling us like, yo, like I'm locked in now. Like
Shit's
this
real.
is not a fucking this is not a game. But it was a different level, man, because we knew like how they were setting shit up, how those dudes were fighting in other AOs, that this wasn't these were trained guys, like generationally trained dudes.
It gets real when you realize you're being hunted over there.
Yes. Yeah. And that was it. I mean, the best thing that I remember from that deployment was I asked the senior dude, he was in Marja before he came to us. And I'd done some dirt before I joined the Marine Corps. And so I asked him, I was like, you know, how does it feel to kill somebody that you think is doing something wrong? And he's like, you know, what do you mean? And I said, I mean, can we have a heart to heart right now? He was on my post, and I said, because I've done some bad shit before I even joined. And he's like, well, if you're asking me about killing somebody, he's like, once you do it one time, you know if you can do it again.
Yeah, facts.
And when he told me that, it kind of changed like my mindset to where I was like, all right, cool, I can do this then. You know, like I didn't have nightmares about, you know, my past life in the street. So it's like, I'm not going to have nightmares right now. But him telling me that, like him spending that time and telling me, he's like, don't worry about what you're going to do after this deployment. Like, don't worry about what the fuck is going on at home.
Locking completely.
Like, none of that stuff exists. Like, what matters is right now. You know,
that's a big thing. That's a big thing right there.
And
it's almost like you're accepting your fate.
Yeah, you are. You are.
Yeah.
And people ask, you know, like, how was it? And I'm just like, dude, it was a fucking job. Like, it was another day. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, the worst thing that could happen is you get blown up or shot. And they're like, oh, that's the worst thing. I'm like, dude, that's the worst thing that could happen.
See, that right there, that concept you just talked about is the thing that fucked me up the most getting out and coming back into civilian life. Because when you lose that, I don't know, or when you actually do come home after you've accepted, you know, this might be the last place I'm at in life. You know what I'm saying? I might actually die out here. It's a weird concept when you make it through and you go back home, because you don't expect it. It fucks with some guys. I know me personally too.
I think the worst part about it is like coming back and not being able to reintegrate because it was so quick. You know what I mean? Like when you get out of the Bing, when you come out of the Bing, it's like you go to a halfway house first. You know, you don't go straight to your fucking house. You go to a halfway house, and then they kind of like make you, you know, get your GED. You're working for fucking pennies. Like you're you know, you're getting kind of integrated from being institutionalized for however long you're locked up. So it's kind of like a soft entry back into society. But like when you go overseas there and then you come back, there is no soft fucking integration. It's like, okay, you're going to stay on base for this long and then you can go back with Susie or whoever the fuck you know, your family or whatever. But Susie, it's like, you're still remembering shit that previously happened.
That's one of the things that since I started the podcast, dude, I think the Marine Corps needs to work on is that reintegration back into civilian life.
The Marine Corps doesn't understand it. It doesn't understand it. And, you know, I made a post.
Or they don't care. One of the two.
I think they care, but I think like one thing that I used to tell my guys, and I mean, a lot of them didn't come from where I came from. I said, being on ship is like being in prison because you don't have clocks. Like we didn't have no clock in our berthing area.
Yeah,
the only thing that we knew were chows. So you knew the breakfast.
Your stomach tells you what time it was, right?
Yep. You heard the, the bell for lunch. Then you heard the bell for dinner. When you're in a Bing, it's the same thing. They don't have clocks in your cell. So like you're keeping yourself as engaged mentally as you possibly can until you go to sleep, until lights out. And then you wake up and then you do the same thing. So you're on a program where when you're on ship, it's the same type of shit. Like you're doing, your white space training, your pocket, classes and whatever the fuck. But unless you go outside to smoke cigarettes or to go up on the flight deck to PT or whatever, you're inside of a cage. That's what you're in. You're inside of 4 walls. That's it. So, when I told them the Marine Corps is an institution just like jail is an institution. Like it's the same shit. You're a junior guy, you go straight in, they train you, kill them all type shit in fucking boot camp. They take you away from who you used to be. When you go to the Bing, it's the same process. Like you go in, they take your fucking, your personal effects. They put you through the fucking lime shower. They do that stuff. They give you, your bedding, whatever. It's the same concept, man. It's the same shit. So you're brand new to whatever pod they throw you in. And then when you're in the Marine Corps, when you go to the fleet, you go to whatever unit that is, that's your pod. So it's guys that have been there for a long period of time. So they know the ropes. They know where to smoke. They know where to get.
It's funny you say that, dog, because the first interview I did to like get into the whole podcast game, I was on the Soft White Underbelly. I did an interview.
Yeah.
And after I did it, a lot of the people that hit me up were a lot of street dudes. And I had talked about PTSD pretty deep.
Yeah.
And they're like, bro, I can feel you hardcore with this shit, dude, because it's exactly the same thing, man. I mean, there's little differences, obviously, but the shit you talk about and the feelings that you feel are the same exact shit
it's
out
the
in the streets,
institution.
Man.
That's what it is. And so, like, the integration, they don't understand. Like, the military hasn't understood that part for as long as we've been around, that integration part. And so, they send you through TAPS, they send you through, whatever the fuck. But it's like, it's just like when you're in a Bing, man. That's the only thing that I can compare it to, because like you got guys that go to the halfway house and you start hearing like, yo, what are you going to do when you get out of this bitch? And they're like, oh, well, I got my girl waiting on me. I got this job. My cousin's going to get me in construction and all this other shit. They don't got no plan Bs, no plan Cs, no nothing. It's just like, this is what I'm going to do. So then, when I went to TAPS, it was the same thing. Like I heard guys saying like, oh, I'm going to just contract, or my uncle's got this business that he's going to give me and I'm going to start working. Bro, it was the same shit. So mentally, whoever's in that fucking TAPS class is already shut the fuck out. They already know what they want to do. Facts. So it's just like, I got to do this so I can get the fuck out and get that check on that sheet. And then that's it. So it's that's what I'm saying. Like bringing it back, it's an institution. And the part that we fell at is the integration. The portion is like, I think especially for guys that went down range, they don't know and they never have known how to integrate us.
Yeah, see, and I would agree with you on that, man. You got guys that are teaching that class, like, the transition and all that.
Yeah, out of a book.
They've never done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they did their time, and, God bless them. They did their time in the military, and now they're trying to help us guys like us get out, but they don't understand it, man. Like how fucking hard it actually is. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So,
well, they teach you they teach you. They teach you how to take lives, but they don't teach you how to save them. That's what I'm talking about as far as the integration, because that's the biggest part. You know, you got guys that make that transition out and they don't have a fucking plan B. And then the only thing that's waiting on them is either alcohol, you know, for some guys it's the streets. The other ones, it's like back to the same shit that they were doing before. And so the thing that I've never respected about our community is that guys that have went before these junior guys that are coming out now that don't have those pumps, they don't have anything underneath them, they're like falling victim to like an identity like issue. To where it's like, oh, well, I didn't do anything. So, you know, either I gotta fabricate what I did to people till I get caught, or
see that a lot.
It's I'm fucked up mentally, you know, and that's
I can understand that to a certain degree though, bro. You know, we're trained to go out and get it. You know what I'm saying? And if you can never prove yourself, I'm just thinking of it from their point of view. You know what I'm saying? I know I would be upset. I know I would be upset if I never got to show myself that I could perform in that element. You know what I'm saying?
Check this out. Check this out though. We had dudes that went to Afghanistan with us, that went like my peer group went to Iraq and went to Afghanistan. There were dudes that didn't come back with cars. They didn't come back with them. And so you got this dude that just went through an Iraq pump, then he went through an Afghanistan pump, and he didn't see a fucking thing. Like either politics played a role in why he didn't get what the fuck he was supposed to, like what he get, what, you know, he was chasing. And so mentally, I think it fucks them up worse. It's like, you went to Afghanistan, but you didn't see no combat?
Damn, I never thought about that.
How do you explain that to somebody? Because a civilian thinks, no, go for it.
No, like, so, you know, I started doing, like, when I got back, like, I started doing, like, physicals, like, separation physicals and all that.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of guys, and I knew they had, like, seen some shit, but it just didn't match up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were pissed. Like, they were just let down that they didn't get a combat action rib. And I'm like, motherfucker, you were over there and you did shit. Like, you got that NAM. You got that NAM because you did some shit. You know, sorry you didn't get the combat action.
Well,
but you know what I mean? Like,
it's the generation that, I mean, when I talk about community and I talk about space and community are two different things. Like what we are in right now, this is a space. It used to be a community, but now it's a space because you have so many little groups and sects of the community. You got your guys that were soft, and then you got your guys that were infantry. Then you got your guy that were pogues, and you got your corpsman guys. So it's like, instead of it being like everything's just everything, you got these groups.
Clicky groups.
And so you got these brands that only cater to soft guys when you look at their content. Then you got groups that, like, I mean, honestly, we're as grunts, raid team is probably at the forefront. And anybody can argue with me about that shit. Because me, I let motherfuckers know, like, yeah, I did some cool shit, but now I'm a fucking civilian. Like, I went over as a grunt. I got to do some cool stuff with cool guys, but I was still a grunt. I was nothing special. You know what I mean? And telling guys that, and them understanding that, coming from somebody that they kind of hold to a higher, you know, whatever, they're just like, all right, cool. Like, I'm one of the guys. Like, I didn't have to do blah, 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 blah to be in this group. And that's the identity crises that we're having right now in this community. And then some of the dudes that are killing themselves, that's another reason why we push mental health so hard. Because yeah, I've lost more homies to the streets than I have in the military, but when I started to lose homies that were killing themselves that I served with, that's when it was like, I started taking it personal, because I'm like, the streets are very small. Like, my neighborhood was small, but we got this whole organization. We got, you know, 100, 200 dudes that were in a fucking battalion, whatever the fuck. that's bigger than my block. But if we can make sure that homie doesn't get smoked or he doesn't fucking fall victim to the system, why can't we as a bigger entity, military, like make sure that the dudes are not doing the same thing when we're bigger? So it's like, where is the love really? Like, where is this brotherhood that we talk about? Nah, the shit exists more so in the street than it does in the military.
When tell me this, bro. When did you become so introspective? When did you get so when were you able to reflect like you are right now and talk, you know, about this deep shit? Because I know for me at least, when I was in, most of the time the op tempo is so high, man, you can't even sit down and think for a minute and be like, oh shit, this is what I'm going through right now. This is what's happening with me. You know, it took me getting out, going through it, and I couldn't even put a name to a lot of the shit, man. Like how was that for you?
I think just growing up the way I grew up, man, like, I mean, we were in wars before I even joined the Marine Corps. It was like, I remember going to a homie's house and he was selling dope. And there were some dudes that came from Ohio. They were selling dope too. And they had a firefight across the street. Like the houses were lined perfectly to where you could see the dude in the other house. And like, they were shooting at each other from house to house, like across the street, you know? And so growing up kind of in that environment, it kind of like, it already kind of made me kind of grow up quick, you know what I mean? And so when I got into the military, it was like, I've been in worse shit, like out in the streets, you know? So yeah, this is going to be a little bit different, but it's still going to be the same shit. And then, you know, kind of the way that my mind works, it ties things together very quickly. And I started understanding, like, this is an institution. Like, that's what this is. Like, it's not anything else, because, I mean, program being in a being is like everybody's doing program. Like, you have to do program or you'll get your ass beat because you're either fat or you stink or whatever. Like, you're on a program. So I started tying in that, okay, we wake up at 6:30 in the morning to go do fucking platoon PT or squad PT. Okay, that's program shit. All right, cool. Around 11:30, that's lunch chow. And the being, I mean, it's a little bit earlier, but like I started tying these things together and it started to make sense for me. So I started building kind of like my defense system mentally as to like how to comprehend what the fuck was going on. So I mean, I always went into the military knowing that I was a man before it, knowing that I probably
you were never chasing more.
Yeah, it like I wasn't trying to chase brotherhood or trying to find out who I was.
Damn, you don't hear like this point of view often from guys. You know what I'm saying? You're very unique in that aspect. And
I wasn't chasing it. I wasn't chasing it at all because I already had it. You know, so it just, for me, I understood the game a lot earlier than a lot of other people did.
It takes a while for some people, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it still took me a while too, man, because when I got out in 16, like I was over at Marine Raiders Support Battalion before I got out. And before that, I was in 2-1. And I mean, I was a stud. Like anybody can vouch for that. Like I cared more about being ready to do whatever the fuck I had to do than anything else. Plus, I was still fucking around in LA, like when I was in. So I was still like part of the gangbang culture while being like, I had to get my hair cut down in LA. So I'm getting razor fades on Sunday. And I mean, I've been doing all type of wild shit all weekend. And then I got to go play Marine, you know, Monday through Friday. And then I knew the weekend was coming again. So like, I've always lived this double lifestyle.
That's weird. So, we have very similar stories, dude. Because I got jammed up right before I got out of the Marines with that shit. And
yeah, I mean,
I never really talked about it, but it's weird because I've always felt really alone in that. And
I got jammed up twice, man. got jammed up twice. And the first time it was I killed a dude on Figueroa and 52nd. And
what?
Justified self-defense.
Yeah, it was a guy that tried to rob me. And I was driving my 71 Chevelle SS.
Ooh.
And I was at a light. I knew where the fuck I was at, but I told the cops I didn't. And dude came up to the light and he had these snow gloves on. Yep. And in LA, if you got snow gloves on, like you're either about to break a window or you're about to break a jaw. Like that's what that is. And so I saw him.
What you mean snow gloves? You talking like puffy gloves?
No. The small ones, like the ones that come about to your wrist.
Oh yeah.
Those are snatch and grab gloves. So the guy had those on, and I seen him out the corner of my eye, and I was like, "Fuck, this fucking light needs to turn green," because I'm in the fucking danger zone right now.
Gas regardless.
Yeah, and so I was blocked in. Like there was a car behind me, and there was a car in front of me. So I'm sitting here on Figueroa, and I'm like, "Damn." And
flick on you though.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had been kind of doing the gangbanging thing while I was still in. And I'm over there, dude comes up, he's walking, but I see him eyeing me. And this is not to glorify any of this shit. No. I mean, this will go into like, my next thing to answer your question. Dude comes up to the window and he's like looking at the car, and he's like, "Oh, this is a nice ride, homie." And I said, "I appreciate it, bro, because I never roll my windows up. I don't give a fuck where I'm at." And he puts his hands like on like where the window sill's at, and he like both of them, and he's like in my space at this point. So I'm like, "What the fuck?" And he goes, "How much you pay for this?" And I was like, "A lot, bro. Light still red." So I'm like, "Fuck." So I take my hands like off the stern wheel, because I drive with two hands just in case I had to flip a bitch or whatever. And so I start sliding my hand down, and as I'm doing that, he's like, "Yo, let me drive it." And I said, "Nah, bro, I can't let you drive my whip." And he was like, "Nah, let me drive it, homie." And like as he's doing that, like his left hand's still on the window still, but he's going for his strap like with his right hand. So I didn't know what he was fucking grabbing, but I was like, "Nah, fuck that." So as soon as I saw the gun, like I shot holes through my door. Damn. And still got pictures of it and everything, man. And the dude, like I'll never forget, like seeing him laying on the ground and kicking the gun away, and then seeing like all the cops from fucking South Central. I was in South Central, so Figueroa and 3 seconds is South Central LA. Mm-hmm. I saw all those fucking cops, like helicopters, everything else, just swarmed. And one of the cops came up to me. I mean, it was crazy, man, because
they draw down on you.
That was like, what's that?
They drew down on you.
Oh yeah. Like once they saw, like, I mean, I knew what the fuck, like, I didn't know what to do at that time, but I knew what to do. So I was like, all right, throw the blick down, have my military ID out, like the whole nine. But I was still looking at this dude, and I'm listening to him gargling. Like I'm hearing this dude die, like right there, but I'm like, fuck him, and
shouldn't have been
that
there.
Neighborhood was 18th Street. I don't know if you guys know like LA gangs, but it was 18th Street and there was Hoover. And those are two of the most prominent gangs in LA.
Yeah.
And what I didn't understand is I was like,
that's Nippy. That's Nipsey, isn't it?
Yeah, Nipsey 60. Yeah, that's the homie. So I didn't know that where I was at, literally at this split, was a different gang. I didn't know that. And that was the very first time that I got into some shit. And I remember going back, and the unit heard about it. Like the unit heard about all this shit. So
of course they did.
We ended up going back. It was me and my homie, and what's crazy is my chick was in the car, her brother was in the car, and like I came back to the unit, and my squad leader had lied for me. So this happened, I think it happened on a Saturday night. So we stayed in the county from Saturday, Sunday, and then some of Monday. So when Monday came, our squad leader was like, "Oh, all present and accounted for." Ooh. So he said we were there.
Damn, you got a real one.
Yeah, we weren't there. So I guess they get the call that Monday, like, you know, you got 2 Marines down here that are arrested or whatever the fuck. And I remember we were about to go to Afghanistan, and we go in the battalion commander's office. Sergeant Major's in there sitting on the couch, and he's like, he didn't even yell at us. He didn't yell, man. Like, it was crazy. Like, our first sergeant shoot our ass, but you know, the sergeant major.
What angle were they taking?
Verbatim. At least I know you guys will shoot when you go on deployment. That was verbatim, like what he said, and I kind of thought to myself, like, bro, I'm about to get NJP'd after this. Like, I'm about to get kicked out. And nah, man, he said that. He's like, you know, you guys did what you were supposed to do. You took care of each other, blah, blah, blah. And like after that, we left his office, and I was like, fuck, like I thought we were gonna get in trouble. And we go downstairs because in 2-1 there was upstairs and then there was a downstairs. Yep. And so we walked downstairs, and they were like, "You motherfuckers are on restriction. You know, y'all are fucking, y'all can't go nowhere." Like all that shit, man. It was crazy. But like that situation kind of changed it for me too, because that's when I really stopped living that double life of like going down, doing stupid shit in LA, and then coming back to the Marine Corps trying to like be this fucking poor old Marine pro and con shit. Yeah, like that's what changed it for me.
Your situation makes much more sense to me now, like where you're at, what you're doing.
And you know, the second time, like talking about that transition, the last time that I got hemmed up, we were making guns. And I don't say allegedly, I don't say any of that. Like, we were making guns. And I was in Downey, California, and I was going to my homie's crib. And at the time, his crib was being broken into. Like, at that, like, there was a dude that was smoking scante, fucking meth. And I'm sitting outside of his house because he wasn't there yet. And this is like while I'm still in the Marine Corps. I was over at Marstock at this point. And I call him on the phone. I'm like, "Yo, you got a brother-in-law that I don't know about? You got like a cousin or something?" And he was like, "Nah, nobody's supposed to be at my house. Like Melissa, his wife, was inside." He was like, "Nah, Melissa's there." So I'm like, "Yo, there's some dude that's like scoping your crib out." And he was like, "You sure it's not like somebody that I know?" And I was like, "Nah, bro, this dude's definitely scoping your shit out." So he's like, "All right, we'll call Melissa and tell her to call the cops." Well, as he's saying that, this dude's jumping the gate. So I'm like, motherfucker. So this is like,
you be getting into some shit, bro.
Dude,
okay.
I told you, man. I'm always
fucking around, bro.
Fucking mix. Dude, I had like lower receivers, uppers, fucking just plate carriers in my trunk, fucking op scores, everything in the fucking trunk, because I just came from base. And I just made this I think it was a P229 SIG. It was like, they came out with the little jigs that you can make them where you mill them out. You know what I'm talking about? So I had one of those, and I see this dude jump the gate. Well, at the same time, his wife's calling the cops, but she didn't specify that the black dude outside the house was the homie instead of the dude that was breaking into the crib. So I get out the car. I got my strap on me, and I'm going towards the gate. And like maybe it took me like 2 minutes to go from like grabbing my shit, talking to him, going to the fence. And the cops, I mean, they're all over the place at that point. And I remember, like, for some odd reason, they said that they had got a call about break-in, and I fit they said I fit the, you know, whatever the description was. Well, later on, I found out there was no description that she gave. She didn't give a fucking description. So that's how I got off on it. Yeah. So, I'm outside the car, strap in my hand. Cops from Downey roll up. I'm pretty sure cops from the city roll up. Helicopters, all type of shit. And they got me fucking. He's like, drop the gun. So I dropped the gun. I'm like, oh shit. And that was probably the closest that I got to. Nah, probably not the first time, but it changed my perspective on shit, because when I went back to I actually got arrested for that shit, and I spent some times in the towers down in LA, and it was a weekend again. I always got fucked with like spending jail time on the weekend. And so I get back over to Marstock, and we were support battalion. We weren't, you know, the operator section. And we go over there, and I go in the sergeant major's office, dude's a pogue, and he starts telling me that I was a piece of shit. I was this, I was that. And then the battalion commander came in. He comes in completely different, like, I guess, kind of vibe.
Really?
Completely different vibe from like being in the grunts. So the sergeant major and battalion commander from 2-1 was like, well, I mean, at least we know you'll shoot when you go to Afghanistan and take care of your brother. The Marstock guy was like, you're a statistic, you're this, you're that. Like, what the fuck?
Really?
Sergeant major's like, oh, you guys think that you're fucking badass because you got cars. And then it started to make sense he didn't have one.
Of course.
Yeah,
so
he took
work. That. Yeah, so he took that, you know, to the head, and they gave me the option to. Well,
he really showed his insecurities there.
Oh yeah, so they said you can fight it. Like everybody, even some of the team guys were like, nah, you need to fight this shit. Because the only reason why I was over at Marstock anyway is because I was trying to go to selection. That's what I was trying to do. Like I didn't want to do a B billet. I didn't want to do any of that shit. And critical skill like jobs didn't have to do B billets. And so that was my escape. I was like, I don't want to go train recruits.
Really?
I don't want to do any. What's that?
That's dope. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like the critical, because they needed guys like at that time. And so like the tattoo operators, shit, the tattoo policies, like all that shit, like we came in and we signed a waiver, because there was dudes that had hand tattoos, like they were blasted. And I remember we had to go to, I think it was a regimental theater or whatever, and they gave us like this paper and we signed it, and it was a waiver for tattoos. Like that's how much they needed guys. But long story short, like I started to understand then that the game was changing. Like it was no longer they wanted shooters, they wanted like the guys with 4.0 whatever pros and cons. Like they didn't want dudes that were grimy guys that they knew that they could depend on, that knew their knowledge. What's that?
This was 16.
Yeah, that was that was 15. That was the year I got out. Yep.
They really started pushing the alphas out at that time.
Yeah, completely. And well, I mean, I knew that it was changing back before I even went over to Marstock, because I mean I was a platoon sergeant, and so fucking with my guys, like, yo, you guys, your rooms need to be clean by this time, and if you don't have it clean, then I'm gonna fuck with you. Like normally that's a squad leader's job, but I mean I was just like, I was a squad leader by heart. I was just thrown into the platoon sergeant role. But I started noticing like them telling me that I couldn't do that type of shit, and the way I was yelling at guys in front of fucking, you know, officers, like I wasn't supposed to be doing that. So I was like,
oh, come on, dude.
This ain't the Marine Corps that I grew up in, but it's the game, man. It changed. It changed. So I ended up just letting them NJP me. I got busted down. And then I just got the fuck out after that. I was like, I'm not going to fight it. Like, I got hit by a car right before fucking, you know, ANS. Like, it was just a bunch of bullshit that I was going through at that time. And I was like, I just got to get the fuck out.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't blame you at all. Oh shit, dog. That's a wild ass fucking culmination of events, dog.
Yeah, dude. You got a fucking story. That's for goddamn
Yeah, that's
sure.
a fact. So, okay. So how long after all that did you start doing merch?
So 16, I got out. Crazy. I was in Mexico when I got my DD-214.
Of course you
Yeah,
were.
one of the homies ended up.
Why not?
One of the homies ended up grabbing it for me, and it was crazy because I was like, "Yo," he's like, "Hey, you need to go grab your shit," and I was like, I mean, you might have to grab it for me because I'm not here." And he's like, "Well, you need to get here," and I was like, "Dude, that's not that's not gonna happen."
Not an
And
option.
so, yeah, I mean, it ended up being pretty cool. Like a lot of guys don't believe that story, but guys that were there around that time, they know who
Why
grabbed
would
the
you
shit
lie?
for me. Yeah, and so I ended up getting out. I was already kind of on a gig before I got out because I mean, once I got NJP, they were just like, "Yo, just focus on doing your own shit, doing your checkout process and all that." So I wasn't really using my gear over there, so I turned that shit in, did my out interview and all this other shit. So I had as much time as I wanted. Um, and then I took terminal, and on that terminal, some homies knew about some jobs, so I was like, "All right, cool. I'm gonna go down here for a little bit, chill out." And that's when I started to get into shit that I wasn't supposed to. Like I talk about that a lot on the page. Um, Money was good down there, and I got bit by that bug again.
Of course you did.
Um, so I'm down there working with some dudes, and we got told that it was going to be asset protection. Then it changed to asset recovery.
Oh yeah.
And then it got changed
Mm.
to that to a bunch of other shit. And I was like, I mean, fuck it. As long as we're getting paid, $5,000-$6,000 a day doing dirt, like I don't give a
Say
fuck.
less.
And one of the guys that I actually give kind of reverence to for this brand, his name was DW, Drew Warren. And Drew was down in Mexico for a long ass time. Like he was down there doing a bunch of shit way before I ever even knew that there was stuff down there. And Drew was kind of my big brother. He was the one that taught me a lot of shit. Like you can pretend to be Haitian down here because there's Haitians down here, and as long as you speak Spanish, Haitians speak Spanish and French, so I could blend in
Easily.
with a lot of shit that was going down. And I mean, we were doing some shit like probably the most fucked up thing that I experienced was we hit a house dry hole, and then we started hitting rooms. Well, the first room that we went into, there was a pile of clothes in the corner. We didn't know what the fuck it was. I mean, going overseas, you kick over everything. Like you got to know what the fuck is underneath stuff.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we go to the corner. DW's behind me, so he's my tail guy. Yeah, he's my tail guy. So he comes in, and I go straight to the corner. I start kicking around this shit because I'm like, fuck, there might be some cash or some dope underneath this stuff.
Whatever.
We're about to pocket it. And so I started looking down at these clothes, and I'm like, bro, is that blood? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And I grabbed one of the pieces of clothes, and it was a little girl's underwear.
I knew it.
And there was a nice stack, man. Imagine like being a dirty Lance Corporal in your fucking barracks room. You remember how much laundry we used to have. So that's in the corner, and I start kicking it a little bit more, and I start seeing all these underwear. And then there's t-shirts, and then there's pants, and there's like all this shit in the corner. And almost every pair of underwears had like blood in them.
What the fuck?
And so I'm like,
fuck, man.
I already kind of knew. Yeah. I already kind of knew what was going on
wild shit
in that
Mexico,
crib.
bro.
And I look back and Drew's like throwing up, like he's like, you know, dry heaving, and he's like throwing up. I'm like, yo, dog, just leave the crib.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we keep pushing. Like there was 2 teams, and because it was a dry hole, like everything was fucked. They're like, all right, I mean, we're not worried about shit else. Well, there were people in that crib, like there were little girls that were in that house, and that was a run-through house. They were using that house to break little girls in, and then they were sending them off to wherever. But the guy was a coyote. So we found out that if there was a family that was trying to cross over into the States, they were kidnapping the kids. That's what the fuck they were doing. And like that, you know, we ended up explaining that to the dudes that we were working for. And it kind of just, it didn't seem like they gave a fuck. Like, it's like, oh, well, we're not supposed to be doing that anyway, so just don't focus. I'm like, wait, bro, like,
they don't give a fuck about nothing but
what,
the dollar,
what do you mean we're not supposed to be worried about this? And that's when I started to figure out that I was into some shit that I wasn't necessarily supposed to be into. And then come to find out, the dude that we were going after owed money to the company. Like, he owed money to somebody else. So we didn't hit his spot. And that's why we were doing, like, that's why we were going to go collect his shit. So there was no fucking asset protection. There was no asset recovery. There was none of that. It was like we were getting paid to go hit people's shit, and that was what it was. So it's like, if he would have paid the money that he was supposed to, he would have continued to do whatever the fuck he was doing without anybody ever giving a fuck.
How now? Explain this to me. How do you rock like that down there and not get into it with Mexican regulars, with locals, any kind of PD?
As far as what? What do you mean?
Rocking heavy down there, going in hot.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Most of the time, it's like, for us. So are you familiar with what Pemex is?
Yeah.
So Pemex is, you know, gas and fuel for Mexico. Like that's our bigger companies. We started working with them initially. And then we were just like regular PSD. We were like that type of shit. And then we had, you know, missions where we would just go along their fucking fuel lines and make sure that there were nobody tapping into their shit. And then the skill set changed. Well, we had, and I still have the card. We had a card that basically, and it didn't matter if you got hemmed up, like you could call this number and get out of whatever the fucking situation was.
Yeah.
And it's not like, and let me be brutally honest, we were not doing no Sicario shit. Like that's not what we were doing. But you're not walking around carrying guns. Like we were not driving fucking bulletproof vehicles and all that. Like it was none of that. When we did asset protection, those Yukons that we had or whatever the fuck it was, like those were, I mean, the windows were bulletproof, the doors were bulletproof, but that was under the umbrella of the company.
Gotcha.
So it's like this company hired this company to kind of integrate with them, and it was a shit show, man.
Excuse me.
But as we got deeper into shit, I started to realize the politics behind what the fuck I was doing. Like I was running, you know, security potentially for guys that were on the other side. Like that's what the fuck they were. And I didn't know that. So Drew, we ended up hitting another crib doing the asset recovery bullshit. And I wasn't there, but it was Drew. There was a dude named Alex, and there was a dude, we called him Wimpy, because he was going through some fucking emotional shit. Yeah, we called him Wimpy because he was like always going through something. Like his girl was breaking up with him, or his truck got scratched, and he would bring it to work, and like, you know, so we called him Wimpy. They hit a crib, and DW was the first person. Like they made entry, they slowed down. They were supposed to keep that like aggressive, just push through mentality. DW hit the room. DW gets shot in the chest. Well, he got shot like right above his fucking plate carrier. Like it was, I don't know if it was God, the devil, whoever it was. Like he got shot within inches above his plate carrier to where if they would have put pressure on his shit, I think the doc was telling him, I think Max was telling us that like where he got hit, if he would have put pressure on his shit, he was suffocated.
From the blood.
So there was nothing that they could do. Yeah.
Oh, so
I mean, if he, well, the way that they were explaining to me, because I didn't see his body, but he was saying that if he would have put direct pressure over to wherever the fuck it was, like he would have, whatever's in the throat.
Yeah,
I'm not a corpsman, so I don't.
It would have just bled right into
Yeah,
his
he
lungs.
said that if he would have put pressure, and he's like, I would have stopped him from breathing. So we basically just kind of held his hand the whole time, and I was listening to all this over the radio, but they hadn't said who it was. We had a corpsman he was prior military. I can't say his name, but he was prior military. So I heard the Zemus over the radio. I mean, this dude was like, he just never let it go. So I'm hearing the Zemus, and I mean, this is like 2018. It was 10/28/18. And I start hearing the Z-Mist rolling over, and I'm like, yo, is that a fucking Z-Mist? And then I heard him repeat it. And then I heard him going through the steps that he was doing, like, we're applying pressure, but we can't apply pressure right now. Like, I'm like, who the fuck is, who's dying right now? Like, what the fuck is going on? And maybe 15 or like 15, 20 minutes after that, like I heard it was DW. DW follow raid team. Like, I was not an Instagram guy before this. I didn't know what the fuck this 2A community was. I didn't know that there were brands. I didn't know any of that shit. So DW was following raid team. He bought some merch from these guys that originally owned the company. And the company was super fucking small at the time. And so I knew his wife, like, super good. Like, we drank with each other. I was his kids. Well, I'm his kid's godfather. And I got told, hey, you need to grab his personal effects, grab him up, get him ready, to get shipped out back to his wife. So I go to his, where he's got his stuff at, and I start going through his stuff, and I saw this raid team shit, and I was like, the fuck? And my homie was there too. I was like, yo, what is this? And he's like, I don't know what the fuck that is. He was like, raid team. He's like, this shit sounds like some, like, I don't know what that is. So we're thinking the whole time, like, it's like something in the company, or he's like doing some other shit on the side. And so we take it to Bill, who was, he was a project manager at the time. And he said he didn't know what the fuck it was either. So he's like, I don't know. I mean, he started getting pissed off. So they did an internal investigation on a dead dude, my homie, trying to see whether or not he was involved with some other shit because of the name Raid Team. Like, this merch had Raid Team on it. And so they did the investigation. They started looking online. I mean, these are some dudes that, like, they'll look at your girlfriend's pictures and your grandma's pictures to try to figure out where the fuck you are specifically. Like, that's what their job were. And so they ended up finding out that Raid Team was a fucking brand. And I think I had Instagram. I hit them up on the page originally. It was like, I think it was there were two guys that owned the brand. There was Adam and Nate. Nate and Adam owned the brand before I did. And they ended up basically telling me that DW had bought some shit. They kind of knew who he was, but didn't know who he was, but he was a supporter of the shit. So I'm like, well, what the fuck is this Raid Team stuff? Like, it sounds like it's some, some hitter shit. And they said, oh no, it's just a brand. So I was like, well, how the fuck is my brother wearing some shit like this? Like, I know this dude. Like, I've slept on his couch. Like, I've picked him up. Like, so they were going to shut the company down. for whatever fucking reason. I don't know, it was like some internal strife. And I told him, I was like, yo, well, if it's financial, like if my brother fucked with this shit, I'll keep you guys afloat. Like I will definitely fuck with this. And he's like, nah, we're just gonna get rid of it. And I said, no, dude, well, I mean, well, if you're gonna get rid of it, then I'll buy this shit. Like I'll buy it and then I'll keep you guys on and you guys can run it. I'm just gonna keep the thing going because obviously if he wore it, if he fucks with it, then I fuck with it. That was the conversation that we had.
Yeah.
And I was still working that gig at the time. I was still very much in the belly of the beast at the time. And there was a live that we had. And I was just learning like really Instagram at the time. And we got into a fucking shootout like on live. Like I'm talking to all these people on this fucking page and some dudes rolled up. We ended up getting into it with them. And I didn't realize that I was still on live. Like I clicked out of the live, but you have to click out of it again.
Yeah.
Well, that shit got uploaded to the main page. Like I shared it. So everybody that was following the page at that time saw this fucking buffoonery going on. And that's when a lot of people started following the brand. Like my homie hit me up and my phone's going off and I'm like, yo, what's good? He's like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean, what am I doing? I'm working right now. I'm in it. And he's like, no, bro, like you're still live. And I said, oh shit. So I go to my phone.
Goddamn.
Yeah, and I see all this blue shit, like follows from like just all type of fucking just like bigger name people in the community. And they're just like, holy fuck, like the fuck are you boys doing over there? And I ended up having to apologize for that shit. Like I apologized to the whole raid community. And I was like, yo, you know, you guys weren't supposed to see that. That's not what we're about. You know, I had to do my little PR fucking like talking everybody down. But during that time, I mean, the next year, my homie Zeus killed himself.
Fuck, I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah, sorry.
And this is a dude that had, you know, the Jolly Raid on his kneecaps. Like it got really, really deep. And just the symbolism of having something on your knees, you know, like your family's name or whatever says that you won't bow to nobody. So,
I know.
You know, seeing guys that had the shit blasted on their throats, on their heads, like this started to turn into like, they're like, oh, Caz owns it. So then we're going to fuck with it. So dudes really started like repping this shit hard. And Zeus ended up doing some shit he wasn't supposed to do. And we called him Zeus because the dude got struck by lightning, like legit struck by lightning. And it killed like most of the fucking, I guess, on top of the, like he had these, yes. So on his body, you could see these dead nerves. And he just looked like, I mean, he looked like a freak. Like that's what he looked like to me. So we started calling him Zeus because it's like you're the only motherfucker that can like get struck by lightning and like be fine. White dude. So I mean, obviously, it kind of looked like varicose veins. Like that's what
I know what you mean.
So
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude was an Adonis. Like, just I mean, not in a gay way, but in a gay way. Like the dude was beautiful. Like Zeus was fucking like a work of art. And you know, talking to him, he was probably military too. And I asked him, he said he never felt. Like we had a conversation one day. He said he never felt, and I said, "What do you mean you never felt?" He's like, "I've been good at everything my whole life." And I'm like, dude, I mean, I felt a bunch of shit. Like just my whole life is a divine comedy. And he said, yeah, he's like, I went to school, I played baseball, I could have went fucking, to college for it, then I could have probably went to the league. So like he's explaining all this shit to me. And like a couple months later, he got into some shit with the company and we ended up having to relieve him. Like we had to drive him to the airport. We had to downgrade his guns, downgrade everything. And when I took him to the airport, I kissed him. I was like, hey, bro, like, I love you. Like, just go find some other shit. I was like, bro, go to Brazil. Like, you like big booty bitches anyway. So, like, go overseas, like just chill the fuck out. Like we've been active for way too long. Like, and I know you're tired, bro. Like just chill. And he's like, yeah, I got you, bro. Like, I love you. I'll pick you guys up from the airport, blah, 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 giving me like sweet talking me. Well, Zeus had taken my pistol, took my pistol, and at some point in time, I think it was like in the hotel room or something, but he took my pistol, and I got a phone call like as I was driving back from dropping him off, and they're like, yo, like, where's your gun? Like, where's your piece? And I was like, it's in my room. And then I have one on me right now. He's like, nah, for real. Like, where's your gun? And I said, dude, I have it on me. Like, there's another one in the room. He's like, nah, I'll tell you where it's at. Like, Zeus just killed himself in that fucking whatever hotel you dropped him off at. And I was like, I stopped the car, like in the middle of the fucking street. And I was like, wait, nah. And he's like, yeah, bro. He's like, you're under investigation right now. Like, come back, download your shit. And that's when I really started pushing the mental health on Raid, because having that conversation with him about never losing his whole life, and that was the first loss he technically took to him, was getting kicked off of that gig. And
took it that
I mean, yeah, this is a dude that like he was the clown of,
I hear you.
He was the clown of all of us, like always in a good mood, always fucking like doing some
but I know the type.
Yeah, that was him. And so he told me like a couple weeks earlier that he was tired. He was like, yo, bro, like I'm tired of this shit. And I was
take your time.
I hear you, bro. I have brothers too. I hear you. I know it gets real.
Take your time.
I was the one that encouraged him to stay. And I'm like, dude, just like, we're almost done with this shit. Like, fuck it. Like, we're making money right now. Like, we're going to be able to buy whatever the fuck we want. And that was my mindset. And he's like, nah, dude, like, I'm tired. And I said, yo, just make it past this, like this little iteration, and then just dip. Like, just don't come back or tell Bill, like, you're done. Like, you made as much money as you wanted to. Like, you're straight. And I didn't understand that, like, mentally he was telling me, like, yo, dog, I'm tired of, like, what we're doing over here. I didn't understand it because I had been brought up to just push.
I know what you mean.
It doesn't matter what, bro. Stop being a pussy, bro. Like,
that's who brought me up too, bro. You bury that shit. You never talk about it. You drink it away.
And that's what I did. He should have left that day that he said he was tired. Like, I should have pushed it up. He should have dipped, and I didn't do it. And he made that mistake that got him relieved.
That ain't, bro. I know how you're taking it. That ain't all you. That ain't all you.
Yeah.
No, but no, it through that I learned like what death smells like. I learned what it smells like. I learned what it sounds like. I learned what it looks like.
Yeah, that's real. You just gave me goosebumps, man. Fuck.
Yeah, big time.
Like, when somebody says that they're tired, they can still joke around. They can still play. They can still, but like when they tell you like, yo, I'm dealing with some shit. That's when all that funny shit goes out the door. Like, you got to look at them as like, okay, this is a motherfucker with a problem. You can't treat them differently, but you have to be like, yo, dog, like, I'm in this trench with you, bro. Like,
had the tempo shifted? Had shit gotten hotter? Like, I mean, or was he just?
Dude, we had a guy that was with us. We called him the Voodoo Man. And before he was before he was doing the shit with us, he was an actual surgeon. That's what he was top level surgeon, dude. And this was just kind of put it in perspective. We used to catch dudes. Once we kind of went rogue, we used to catch guys, and if they were real bad people, this dude knew how to surgically remove people's limbs and keep them alive. And then he would drop them off in the desert, like fully hooked up to IVs, like just fucked up shit like that. And after a while, I mean, we were all for just doing the right thing. Like it was like by the book.
The other side. You'd seen the other side.
And then once we started to realize what the fuck these dudes are actually into, like coyotes dropping people off in the middle of the desert, knowing that that's not the way to get into the United States, just like fucked up shit. Mm-hmm. So once we started knowing that we were playing around with those type of dudes, it was like scalps. Like that's we were playing the same game as them. And
damn.
It was like our innocence was, I mean, we weren't innocent by no means, but like that's when we started playing the game that they would play with us if we got caught. It wasn't.
I feel you. I feel you.
And
no, and
having,
go ahead.
Having Zeus, like having Zach not necessarily exposed to that type of shit before, and then us breaking his cherry, like we're like, bro, if you don't want to go with us right now tonight, you don't have to, because there's going to be some weird shit that happens tonight. And if you don't feel comfortable going, then don't go. And he's like, nah, bro, like, yeah, I'm rolling. And we were fucking him up more so than like,
yeah, I hear you.
We understood.
I get you.
So I mean, the tempo, it wasn't about the tempo, it was about like what we started doing to people, all under kind of the mental, kind of the moral compass of, oh, we're doing the right thing, we're serving justice, or we're God's, whatever. Like one of my homies used to recite the Genghis Khan shit, like all the time.
Heavy,
like,
bro. That's fucking heavy shit.
You wouldn't have done this, and we wouldn't be like. He put it into the perspective of like, because I was really battling with some shit at the time too, and he's like, us being here doing what we're doing right now, we wouldn't exist in this time, like in this moment, if they didn't exist.
Yeah. Well, and dude, and man, I'm so sorry you went through that. And I know, like, not just you, me, Nick, a lot of our listeners, we've all been through that, man. And that's just fucking, you can't explain
dude, that's heavy shit.
You can't explain it. Yeah, you can't at all. Man.
I mean, you can,
yeah,
when
man,
you
I'm
sit
sorry.
back.
I'm sorry.
When
brother.
you sit back, you can explain it though.
No, I hear it. I hear it in what you're saying.
When you really sit back and you think about this shit,
that's why it's hitting it like it is.
You can't explain. You can't explain it. It's a lot of us got conditioned by our fathers, by our mentors, by people that we looked up to, and they weren't taught how to express their feelings about what the fuck they were going through. So then it just went to us, and we kind of like that generational sin, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like sins of the fathers go to the son in a way, like not a Bible thumper, but like.
No, it makes sense.
The generational sin went to us. So then we started feeding that bullshit, like, oh, suffer in silence and all of this other shit. And so we just weren't taught.
It's funny because exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Every girl that I've called an old lady, I've always battled with them because I can't feel feelings like them. I can't express my emotion because I bury that shit, bro. Because to me, that's weakness. That's how I've been taught. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I feel weird talking about it even now. You know what I'm saying? Because just like you
gotta
said,
hit rock bottom. You gotta hit.
I hear you.
When when I lost those family members and when I lost the main page, a lot of people thought that I gave a fuck about the main page because I had all these followers. I mean, we were at like 50,000+, and they thought I cared that I lost the page.
What happened
the
with the
thing that
page?
I
Why'd you
cared
lose the
about.
page?
So during that Afghanistan pullout, I made a post that said, "We don't give a fuck about politics. We give a fuck about mental health." That's what the caption, like, that's literally what it said on the post, because people were talking about the Biden and they were talking about Trump and then all these other shit. And I was like, I don't give a fuck about all that. The only thing I care about is that these dudes are going to come home after seeing their friends blow up and they're going to be all fucked up. And there's not people in their unit that can effectively talk to them to where they can explain, like, yo, you're going to be fucked up, but I got you. Like, I knew that that wasn't going to happen. And so that's what I was trying to push. And a dude I know came on the page and was doing some troll shit, you know, being funny. And he's like, I'm gonna, what did he say? We had already gotten a couple of our posts taken down because they were graphic in the first place. And we were already riding that thin line with getting our whole shit like just yanked. And the dude said, I'm gonna just spam you with political shit. And I know this guy. So I was like, if you do, I'm gonna kick you in the dick. Just like being funny. Back to him. Dude, Instagram saw that shit, took our page. Like, as I said that shit, 2 seconds later, it logged me out, which is what happens when you really do lose your fucking page. Not like trying to be edgelord where it's like, oh, we lost our page and then tomorrow you're back. Like, no. They logged me out. But what was crazy too is, like, before that shit happened, we got this fucking I used to put my personal number online that said, like, yo, like, this is my personal fucking number. If you need help, call me. I don't give a fuck what time it is. Like, that was my cell phone. That wasn't a burner. That wasn't anything. Like, I put that out there for these guys. And I got a text message on my phone. I'll have to look at my other one. And it said, it may behoove you to take those posts down.
Damn.
And I'm thinking to myself, who the fuck uses behoove? Military guys are the only ones that use that fucking word. So I was like, okay, my response, behoove? My response was to that text message was, okay, tell me what you're going to do about these guys' mental health and I'll take all my posts down. And I never got, like, nobody ever said shit.
Nothing.
The person didn't respond to me, nothing.
That shit. Yeah.
And then I think it was that next day, we made that post. We don't care about politics. We give a fuck about mental health or something like that. And I made that comment of kicking the dude in the dick. And then I got logged out. I tried to log back in. It said, like, it told me that I disobeyed community guidelines before it logged me out or something like that. It was right. Like, however it works when you get kicked off. But we tried to go through, like, I had to hold up a piece of paper in front of my face that said, my social security number with the page on there. Like, it was some jail shit. And that's how they verified the page. Like, supposedly they were verifying the owner of the page. And they said, if you think that we shut your page down by accident, like, you can go through the process for trying to get it back or whatever the fuck, bro. Our shit was gone. Like, wow. Never has come back.
I had, listen to me, dude. I was so not prepared for this. I had no idea you had a story like this, man.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah. No shit.
Wow. Dog, like, you gotta understand.
It was the forefront, man. Like, that's all I cared
right
about.
Now, just what you're saying right now coincides so hard with what I've been pushing, dude. And I'm starting to realize there's not a lot of us. There's not a lot of us that actually are real operators that seen this shit up close, that really lived it and really seen this shit. And it hits you differently. I'm telling you, people, what we're saying is real. Like, motherfuckers are dying and they're taking their own lives because we're not taking them seriously. Mental health is real. Some people just can't I don't know if it's just some people can't rock with this shit or they can't bury it. Some people are just different. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I don't know if it's the people that I saw, like, outside the wire freezing up behind the trigger when they were supposed to actually, stitch a motherfucker up, or if it's just people that, have a conscience for real, and can't live with certain things. I don't know.
I don't think 90% of the dudes that are killing themselves right now, I don't think they're the ones that have actually seen too much. I don't think that's the ones that are doing it. I think it's the ones that haven't.
I'd agree.
Which are the ones that are doing it because
they get a little taste and they're just like, what the fuck?
Nah, it's more like, okay, I'll put this in perspective. I was making fun of guys that like buy nods, and that's their personality. Like I went on this rant where, I showed the Alibaba nods and just the fake shit. Like, bro, you can buy these and then you get a good photographer and then, you do an angle to where they don't know they're fake. And then you put this caption up and dude, I went in, I had a Kanye West moment, and I was putting that up there and I was like, the only reason why I'm exposing this is because imagine how fucked up it is to go spend $10,000 as a normal person. I make pretty good money and I would not spend $10,000 on knots. But you spend $10,000, right? And you wear this, you buy this kit, you buy this gun, you buy all this shit, and you post it on Instagram. But you're posting it to get all these likes. You're posting it to feel like you're part of the group. But then you only get 15 likes. You only get 20 likes. You only get 100. Nobody restores your shit, right? How fucked up is that to you mentally? Because you're just like, fuck. Like, I just went through all this and this is all I got back. Like, how bad would that fuck with you mentally? How bad would it? You just bought all this kit. You just bought all of this gear from this brand and you tag them, but they don't tag you. They don't restore you. Yeah. But the guys that own that brand have these nods that are in this picture that have this filter over the top of it and they're fake. But you don't know that because of the way they took this picture. You don't know that. You like the guy that is not showing his face, he's not showing his he's not blocking his face because he's some secret squirrel. Because if anybody knows anything, you gotta sign when you start a fucking Instagram page, they know who you are. They know who you are. I don't give a fuck. Even if you do like a page where you're just like trolling people, you still have to connect something to that fucking that profile, right?
Yeah, email address or cell phone.
Yeah. Like, why are you even you? The guys that block their face, I'll always say this: the guys that don't show their faces, it's because they have skeletons. Because there's some hitters in this community that are out here that we know they put in work and they don't hide their face.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So it's like, what makes some of these guys think that they're that important to where they can't show their face? I don't give a fuck. Dude, I just got left LA to where my neighborhood's in a war. In a war. And they know the Jolly Rate. That neighborhood knows the fucking Jolly Rate. They know who I am. And I don't hide my face. So imagine how it is to somebody that doesn't know who the fuck they are, mentally, psychologically, and they go buy all this gear and they post it on their page and then they don't get the reaction that they think that they deserve. And now they're in debt.
Yeah.
Now they're depressed. Maybe that guy didn't go on deployment. Maybe he's just Joe Schmo, whatever the fuck. And now he
those
just
are really
did all
the people
this.
that's really who you're saying are killing themselves though, bro?
Some of them are.
I just think that's such a petty. I hear you, dude.
No, but I mean, you got to look at that's just one side of it. The people that are killing themselves are having issues with identity. That's what it is. It's like if you went and did some shit overseas that you weren't. I mean, not everybody was supposed to be there. Like I don't care how hard a motherfucker is. Like at one point you did something that you weren't necessarily supposed to do.
Facts. That's fact.
And now it's coming back. You can't deal in death and think that the shit's not going to come back in one way or another.
That's a fact.
It'll
Yeah,
come back
dude,
to your
and
relationships, your health.
That's
It's
real.
gonna come back because you owe it. Like you owe the shit.
That's real.
yeah, dude, and you know, one of the best quotes I've ever heard is, "You can't touch war without war touching you back."
No, you can't.
And
You can't.
you know, I mean, you got guys like, well, I'd like to say the three of us right now talking that we can, you know, we're man enough to be like, yeah, I'm a little fucked up, so I'm going to deal with it. But you know, you do have the bad ones, you know, the statistics and all that. But yeah, you can't touch war without war touching you back, man. It, I don't give a
I
fuck who
think
you are.
it's in a way. I think it's we just did a photo shoot this weekend, and it's for a design called Death Follows. And the way that we did that photo shoot, I mean, I don't know if this podcast is going to come out before that design drops, but we were out in the desert, and I had my rifle that I've actually put work in with, and I'm holding that, and there's a campfire, and I'm drinking, like in the photo shoot. Like it's simulating death is handing me a bottle of Maker's Mark.
I hear you. I picked
And
that
I'm
up.
looking into this fire. Most people are going to look at that design and say, okay, that's a cool design. And they're going to completely miss what's behind that photo shoot.
Damn, dude,
Yeah.
you are a heavy motherfucker in this game, bro.
He
Okay.
is, dude,
All right.
he is.
They're going to
Dude, you are
miss that part. And it's like, while we were doing the photo shoot, I told my homie, he's like, yeah, I got these props and we're going to use it. And I was like, nah, dude, like, show me sitting by the campfire, kind of like thinking about life. And then death comes up because obviously the church says death follows. But then hand me a bottle of alcohol. Like, hand me that. So I got my tool, which is, you know, the rifle, and then I have alcohol.
I hear you. I hear you. I'm picking.
You know,
I get you, bro.
that's.
How many people have you met like you?
I mean, I've taken a lot of shrooms, man. Like, I fuck around with the psychedelics huge.
I do
And
too.
I always take them. I don't take them to have a good time. I take them to purge.
No, I know.
So it's like a sadistic mindset behind taking shrooms because, like a sadist, you know, that's what I'm doing. Like, I'll get a pound of shrooms. I'll stick my hand in that motherfucking that cup or whatever, and I'll put them all in my mouth. And I'm just like, all right, Jesus, you got the will on this because I'm about to fucking trip. Yeah.
Stand by.
And you know, the other day I looked at myself in the mirror. They say never look at yourself in the mirror on psychedelics.
Don't do it.
And I did. The room was pitch black, and I stared into the fucking mirror until my brain could.
You like
see.
poking the shit, huh? You like I see you now.
Bro.
I see you. I see you now.
Yeah.
Poke the fucking
you like
bear,
playing with it. You like playing with it.
And that's what I did last year. Cause I went to a crazy house, bro. Like I went to a crazy house.
Stop. Listen. You went to a crazy house?
Yeah, man.
Doc, tell him about crazy houses real quick, bro. Doc has seen me strapped to a bench, strapped to a gurney in a hospital after getting ketamine stuck in me because I had a little moment. Yeah, I've been there, bro. I see you. I see you, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I ended up hitting rock bottom, man. I went through some tough shit to where, like,
dude, this is probably like one of my best episodes right here. I did not expect this out of you.
I'm fucking stoked.
I kind of, in a way, I like. I'm not a religious guy, man. I'm not. I believe I'm very black and white. Like
I am too.
There's right, there's wrong, but
I think unfortunately none of that exists, and it's just us out here. Sadly,
I think because I've played God.
That's what I'm saying.
Have played God at a certain point. We've played God.
But if that can happen, how can there be some? You know what I'm saying? Like,
but see, here's the thing, though, and I'm telling
you. Put it out there. I'm just talking. I'm just putting out how I feel.
When you save somebody from killing themselves, it's like defying gravity, right? Like it's literally you're like defying
Dude,
gravity.
you stay dropping these fucking okay.
Because that energy's already pulling that person. Like it's pulling them
already
down.
dead
And
set.
then
It's already ordained. It's already
it
planned.
is.
It's
And
supposed
then
to happen.
when you stop that shit, whatever forces that were trying to pull that person under, you just stop that. So now you got to beef with whatever that entity was that was trying to pull that person down.
That's heavy shit, dude.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you got to stay. I've got into some bad shit, man. Like it just some bad stuff. Like religion wise.
That's what I'm saying. And now make me feel a little better. Like you.
So I grew up. So my dad is from Panama.
Okay.
I grew up like kind of being around Santeria, which is like it's witchcraft.
I know about Santeria, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
And so growing up around that shit, it's heavily based on like Catholicism too. It's you know, you got your gods, you got your entities, you got all that stuff. And so I grew up around that. And you know, my grandma putting salt on every fucking windowsill on the door.
It's subjective. Like, it's subjective.
Yeah, that type of stuff. And the job that I was working, when I talk about south of the border, I needed to understand what the fuck I was dealing with. So I adopted that religion of Santa Muerte, believing in it. Like it's on my body. I ended up getting buried alive, going through the whole ceremony, shit like that. Like, and
tell me what you got out of it.
I don't want to go too in depth on that because
I wouldn't either. I hear you.
Like that stuff that this community has introduced.
Because just even putting it out there means something.
People have put stuff out there to where it's like you don't understand what you're getting involved in.
You can't cork it back. Yeah.
No, you can't. Once you're there, you're there. And you know, I see people dropping like the Santa Muerte designs and the like all that shit. And I'm just like, bro, like if you knew like how deep that shit goes, you wouldn't involve yourself in it. So when I say like that I believe that there is a God because I've seen everything but him.
That's okay.
I've seen everything but him. I've seen the devil before. The motherfucker stared at me like on one of my trips with DMT. Like I've seen him. Like I've been on DMT tripping hard to where my homie's on the couch, and this is a crazy story. He was sitting on the couch, dude trips out all the time. Like this guy is awesome, Luda. So he's sitting on the couch, and he's done DMT, ketamine, and all this shit. And I hit this DMT, and I start to melt. Like I sat in the kitchen, and I'm sitting like
that is the scariest goddamn thing.
And what I saw was like, you remember those virtual reality games to where you see the 3D guy in the dark room and you can only see like the silhouette of him? That's what I was when I closed my eyes. That's what I was. And I saw these light prisms, and these prisms, technically they should have been shooting through my body because of the way that they were coming, but they were bouncing off. And the craziest shit, when I came off that trip, he's still sitting on the couch. Like, I didn't move the whole time. And I was like, dude, like, I probably went to hell for I don't even know how fucking long. He's still sitting there just fucking playing video games. And I'm like, he's like, so what'd you see? And I said, bro, like, I saw myself as like this black thing, but like the energy was bouncing off of it. And then I saw like everything, like I was a child molester, I was a murderer, I was a bank robber, I was like all this shit. And he's like, I'm like, bro, I said, everything that you can imagine that was fucked up, I saw that. And he's like, I said, what do you think it was? He was like, you saw a man.
Jesus.
And you know, I'm still coming down off this trip. So I'm like, the fuck is this guy talking about? And it took me about a day to understand what he was saying when he said you saw man, like you saw evil. You saw what is out there that exists right now that you can't get away from. He's like, it didn't necessarily have to be you, but you saw it. That's how your brain wanted you to see it.
Do you know the feeling of like being stuck in a trip? You know what I'm saying? Like, and how long it feels and how terrifying that is to you. You know what I'm saying?
That's where I try to go every time.
You're fucking crazy, dude.
That's where I try to go every time.
3 times, dude, and it's the scariest thing I've ever done.
But that's where you learn shit. That's where you really learn stuff. Is like
you're right.
When like that last trip when I talk about like me hitting rock bottom. Like I hit rock bottom, dude. Like this wasn't like a normal. Like when I came out the other side, and I'm still dealing with like the after effects of hitting that rock bottom. Like, I told one of my homies, I said, dude, that last year I learned more in the course of a year, a couple of months, than I learned in the 30-some years of being alive.
Yeah.
I learned more in that last of it. I think it happened around like September, October timeframe. I learned more from September, October, November, December, January, February than I learned 30-some years of living.
No, and like with me, like me and Nick getting reconnected, because we've always been close. It was just, you know, life happens. And I lost my wife in December of 21.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. But you know, me and Nick reached out to each other again, and you know, I'd done a little bit of that. Like I'm not a huge fan of it, just me. That's me personally. I'm totally for it. Just like people that smoke, you know, that smoke weed and all that shit.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. It just doesn't do it for me, and that's just me. So
no,
it's terrifying. It's fucking terrifying. That's why.
I tell people all the time, like the veteran community is trying to put psychedelics on people. Like, oh, you should go on these trips and do ayahuasca and take shrooms, and everybody's putting it in their post now. Like it's becoming like this cool thing. I tell people all the time, when you do shrooms, it forces you to look at yourself and you become naked. If you really do it for the right reason, like you're looking at the most inner part of your, like, of you. And then people talk about ego death. People talk about ego death. You can't kill your ego. You can't kill it because it's something that was it's been with you since you came out of your mom's stomach. It's your big brother. It's something that helps you when you are at your lowest. It's that ego. And if you kill that, you really think that you, like, you're in the dark. Like, that's the abyss. Like, there's nothing else after killing the ego.
It's funny. I've said that multiple times. I've never had someone agree with me on that.
Now, you saw how powerful, how tremendous it was. That's what you saw. You saw it. You saw it as great as it is, but you didn't kill it. There's no way. And then most people, they come off these trips and they still have like these like complexes of them being better than everybody else. Once you really hit rock bottom psychologically and spiritually off that trip, you don't give a fuck about anything. Like you don't care anymore. Yeah. And that's where I am now.
I see. I think people don't really understand it. You're very in tune with yourself. You're very in tune with yourself, so you can pick that up. And what it is just dumb motherfuckers taking the shit and not understanding what it is.
It's not necessarily that they're. It's if you go into a trip, like some of the homies that from the hood, like dudes that have put dudes down, I've taken them on trips, like, because I know they're dealing with fucked up shit, and I'm like, yo, no straps, no knives. No, nothing. Yeah. Like, we're about to trip out in the living room. And I mean, these are dudes, these are street veterans. Like, they've been around for a long time. And I'll give them some shrooms. We'll sit in the crib. We'll listen to some Bob Marley, whatever. And then I'll turn that shit off. Like, straight quiet. Like, turn out the lights. And I'm like, yo, You're about the trip, bro. And then, but I don't give them, when they ask me like, yo, what am I supposed to feel like? I don't tell them shit, because if I tell them what they're supposed to feel like, their brain will tell them what they're supposed to feel like. So they're already anticipating.
You got to find it on your own.
It's like shooting, you know, you don't know where that trigger is. You anticipate it.
You anticipate it. Yeah.
I tell them, nah, bro, like, nah, you're good. And then they start like, bro. And like, yo, you're good, dog. Like, you're straight. And like I said, no guns, no knives. If we need to fucking scrap it out because they think that I'm the devil or they're seeing themselves in me, then we do that. But like, everybody, a lot of people in this community and out of this community, this is why I don't like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan introduced people to this shit about microdosing, about going on all these trips with the psychedelics, but he didn't tell people that it's not for everybody. So now you got all this the woke culture of the veteran community. They're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just use shrooms. And it's like, nah, bro, how much did you take? Like, did you try to like really kill your like soul with this shit? Or did you just like take a little bit to where you feel like you smoked some weed and now you had this enlightenment? No, bro, did you really try to like fuck yourself up behind this shit? And that's when I started to learn when to look for suicide, like guys that were gonna take their lives. Like if you go on social media late at night, that's when I do the most outreach that I've ever done. Is I'll leave nobody's muted on my page. So if we got 10,000 followers and we follow whatever the fuck, so right now we got 5,000 or 500 people that we follow. Everybody's shit, I watch every story every night, and it's grueling. It takes a long time, but like, I look at their stories because
you're looking for things.
I'm looking for those tall tale signs, either that lyric that they just screenshotted from a piece of music, or the quotes that they find online and then they restory them. Like, I'm going through their stories trying to find something, and then I hit them up. Like, some guys, I'll just call them like on the voice chat, and they're like, yo, is this a mistake? And I'm like, nah, bro, it's good. But they don't understand that I'm calling them because I see something. Like, I'm seeing something.
Are you normally good with patterns?
What's that?
Are you normally good with recognizing patterns?
I wouldn't say patterns, but I know what death looks like. I know what it smells like, and I know what it looks like before it's there. Like, there was a guy in this community, I think his name was like Rory Ham or something like that. Dude was an amputee, and he started posting a lot of dark shit on his page previous, like, to him killing himself. And I could recognize his page and the shit that he was posting, and then that night he posted some really dark shit, and then he killed himself the next day, or like that night. And I was looking at this dude's page, and I'm like, how didn't you guys see this? Like, how didn't you see the tall tale signs of this dude about to off himself? And a lot of guys that I talk to at night, and then even the daytime, there's a checklist that I go through mentally and physically with them. And I say, the first time I talk to anybody, I say, hey, you've been drinking? Like, you've been boozing it up? You know, I homie talk. I'm like, yo, what's cracking? Like, what we drinking tonight?
Go down the checklist.
And that kind of loosens them up. So it's not like you've been drinking, bro? What the fuck? Like, no, I'm like, yo, what we drinking? And then they tell me, oh, I'm fucking drinking Jack Daniels or whatever. So then I know how to communicate to them, because now I know that I'm talking to somebody that may not be inebriated, but they're a little buzzed. So
they're working on it. Yeah.
So once I see that, I'm like, yo, it's good. And I'm like, normal conversation with them, and then I start throwing some shit out there. Maybe it's something that I've dealt with today. I'm like, yo, these Instagram motherfuckers, they're pissing me off today. And then that's when they start talking to me about Instagram, and then I'm like, yo, I mean, what's going on with you though? I already know what's going on with them, but I'm opening the floor, and then they're like, oh, my girl did this or whatever. And I'm like, but you're still here though. And then they say, oh no, it's not about that. Like, she fucking cheated on me or she took my kids away. And I'm just like, bro, listen. I got homies doing 25 years right now, life in prison. That's probably the worst that it can get, is knowing that your chick's getting dicked down by another dude and you're in prison and you can't do anything about it. So yes, your kids are taken from you right now. Like, this is in the now. But it's not forever if you play your cards right. And then they start asking, you know, cards like, what am I supposed to do? And I say, just don't fuck up. Like, don't post shit online, because if she hates you, she's gonna bring your Instagram up. You know, don't be fucking drunk, don't be disorderly, play your cards right from here on out. So that way, when you go to court, there's nothing that they can pull out. Or, you know, guys that lose their fucking jobs. I'm like, bro, fuck that job. Like, what's your resume look like? Oh, well, I don't have too much. All right, cool. Call me tomorrow. We'll set your fucking resume up. Like that type of shit. Or guys that have problems with financial shit. I'm just like, yo, Ray team, none of this fucking money's mine. Call me tomorrow. We'll pay your fucking bill or do whatever the fuck we got to do to help you. All you got to do is give me results. You let me know when you get on your fucking feet that you did the right thing. And then guys have actually tried to give me the money back. And I'm like, fuck that. That's not my money. Like, my homie's dead. That's his money. And he would give it to you.
So, yeah, that's fucking awesome.
Caz, I hate to cut you off right now, but we're going on 3+ hours, bro.
Shit. All right. No, we're good.
No. We gotta do, get straight up. We gotta do part 2, bro. You got me wilding right now.
All right.
Definitely one of my better episodes, dude. I can't thank you enough for hitting me back, dude. I would love, whenever you are down to do another episode, dude, tomorrow, whenever, we get it. I'm gonna hit you after we get off this, talk to you a little bit offline, but
okay.
Thank you, dog. Seriously.
Sounds good.
For real.
All right, Chris, nice meeting you. I'll give you my contact information too, so we can link. But yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So there you have it. Episode 67, part 1 with Mr. Caz. We got it off tonight, and we're gonna be getting it on again for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. Sure. Semper Fi. Have a good night. Hoorah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Later.